The Heavenly Demon. Can't Live a Normal Life. By Sanchin. Chapter 97. The Unexperienced World. Part 1. When Kevin first heard the plan, he watched Chris and others arguing silently, and only asked a question after he conveyed that he was going to follow Roman's plan. What do we need to do? This war wasn't something Roman could handle alone. It was a good plan for Roman to use the mountain terrain and darkness to deal with the enemy, but the 200 troops had nothing to do in the meantime. Nevertheless, Kevin wanted to be in the plan of Roman. Chris was no different. Thus, when Kevin asked the important question, Chris added, "Right. I agree that the Liege can conduct the operation by himself. The Liege already has the ability to pull that off, and we, who cannot keep up with the Liege, will inevitably pull you down. But that doesn't mean we can leave everything to you, my liege. Even if you have to use us as bait, please put us to some use." Those were words full of concern. Nevertheless, from the start, Roman had every intention to use as much power as he could. From now on, let me briefly explain the operation. SHHK. He opened a map. It was the map that McBurney had given him. Although it was small, Roman deliberately pulled out that map and pointed out the area at the start of the mountain. This operation is divided into 3 phases. In the first phase, I will use my mobility to deal with Hector's remnants. Since the Hector kingdom is preoccupied with attacking the front defense line, dealing with them in the meantime won't be an issue. In the second phase, if the Hector kingdom sees my existence as a thorn in their eyes and sends a unit to pursue me, I will lure them to the mountain. And perhaps they will try to take advantage of the overwhelming difference in our numbers and try to deal with me at once. Still, I will prolong the battle, and when the sun sets and darkness covers the mountain, I will use my skills to corner them. Now, only the last phase was left. The final touch. Roman understood that as soon as they got pissed, even if it was impossible, the Hector kingdom would pursue him like crazy and make mistakes. From then on, we enter the third phase. A surprise attack using the terrain. That is your role. Once the third phase was told, the soldiers understood it was a simple plan. They had to dig a trap, wait, and make a surprise attack on the disorganized enemies. Actually, since it was an operation anyone could think of, the soldiers understood it even though Roman had only told them about it briefly. A surprise attack in the mountains will yield clear results. Nevertheless, from the moment we appear in front of them, we will not be free from the pursuit of the Hector kingdom. The difference between Hector and us is too large, and it is virtually impossible to successfully make a surprise attack and escape without any damage. Nevertheless, as it is the command of my liege, I will do it. No one mentioned the risk this operation had. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Roman Dmitri was going to face hundreds or even thousands of enemies by himself, then how could they act like cowards and mention the risks of the surprise attack? Even if they had to die, it was their choice, and being the soldiers of Roman, they had decided to follow him until the end. Naturally, the feeling spread like a plague, and soldiers who followed McBurney and Stephen only remained silent. Their strong will looked quite amazing. Roman was grateful for the soldiers who were ready to dedicate their lives to him, but he wasn't the kind of person who would make meaningless sacrifices. It seems like you all are misunderstanding something. The point of this surprise attack is to reduce the number of enemies while minimizing the damage. That is impossible. The Hector kingdom will surely form a defense formation and continue to search for us. And unless we kill everyone with the surprise attack, we will be grabbed by the tails when Hector discovers our position. You don't have to say anything to give us hope, my liege. We all are already ready to lay our lives down for our liege, said Chris. Even though he was following Roman for a purpose, he was truly loyal to him. Roman said, "No, there is a way to not get grabbed by the tails. In an old book, by chance, I found something along the lines of there are infinite ways to use mana, and depending on how it is used, one can bring Mother Nature on the side of humans." Then, during my stay in Dmitri, after a lot of trial and error, I discovered a new branch of Mother Nature. The soldiers couldn't understand what Roman meant. Thus, to make them understand the path of nature, Roman took a step forward and began to collect things like rocks and branches from the ground. It might not be visible to your eyes, but unlike the other stones and twigs, these ones contain a lot of mana. Actually, it is quite less when compared to human standards. But if they are systematically positioned in the right manner, the power of mana that goes against the path of Mother Nature will twist the space. Tack. He placed the stones on the floor. He then took a few steps forward and placed a branch there. What is he doing? Seeing him repeat the same thing, which was quite weird, a few times, everyone had the same question. Where is he going with this? The questions didn't seem to stop, but just then, the moment when Roman put down the last stone. I have decided to call this the true defense circle. Swish. A light breeze blew, and Roman's figure disappeared like a mirage. Everyone was stunned. They felt like all their senses had stopped working. He was right in front of them just a moment ago, but now, he was nowhere to be seen. They finally became sure. With Roman Dimitri's method, they could attack their enemies safely. And obviously, Roman's plan had worked. Attack. Fire the arrows. Papak. The arrows were fired straight ahead. Even if one wasn't a sharpshooter, they could easily hit the enemy at such a close range. And obviously, the soldiers of Hector soon began to die and fall to the ground. The attack was so quick that they couldn't even think of raising their shields to block it. The soldiers who had been training hard for this war went down in the chaos, and Chris, who had cut off the breath of the Aura swordsman with a single slash, didn't miss the opportunity to move forward. Tap. His sword flashed. As Chris was so fast that he wasn't even visible to the enemy soldiers, multiple heads soon flew into the air. And even though blood continued to gush out of their bodies like a fountain, Chris didn't stop. The moment he made the surprise attack, he decided he would grab the opportunity and push as hard as he could. Everyone, calm down. Strike back. Hector's knights responded. Among them, there were Aura swordsmen. Auras began to emerge from all directions and attacked Chris simultaneously, but he managed to avoid all the attacks. And then, whack! Whack! He attacked the enemy's vital points and sent them to the afterlife. When Chris defeated the 3-star Aura swordsman in the Battle of Great Warriors, he was born completely anew. He finally understood that the power of Aura wasn't everything, and he tried to become even stronger by training with Roman. The beads of sweat that had dropped down his body were enough to create a huge river. Since he couldn't absorb the teachings of Roman properly if he blinked even for a single moment and lost the flow, he would often stay up the entire night because of training and clung to it even when he fainted. And the reward? Obviously, he got a huge reward, the lightning flash. It was a sword technique one of the top 10 beings in Murim had learned by heart. Thus, Chris did his best and learned it by heart as well. And thanks to that, he was now unilaterally slaughtering Hector's knights. This is ridiculous. Where did this monster come from? The enemies were stunned. The opponent wasn't even Roman Dimitri. Still, they couldn't even hold a candle to him. Screams filled with pain continued to pour out each time Chris moved. Also, it wasn't just him. The power of the other soldiers of Roman wasn't any less. As they had learned the Azura sword technique, even though they were called normal soldiers, their combat power was way huge. It was literally overwhelming. After slaughtering numerous enemies in a short time, Chris retreated and shouted with a voice filled with mana. Retreat! Retreat! That was it. The troops of the Hector kingdom couldn't come back to their senses initially because of the surprise attack, but soon, some of them whistled to signal the others. It was a signal that told the others that the situation had reversed. As he heard the sound of the reinforcements coming there, Chris ordered for retreat right away. They had managed to achieve quite a result already. Roman had already told them that this operation was not about killing all of the enemies, but harassing them while making sure they themselves were safe. We need to move to the next point. On this wide mountain, Roman had made several true defense circles. Roman understood the reality that they couldn't win against them head-on, so he decided to attack only in favorable situations. All of Cairo's soldiers ran away like loaches. That was the end of the surprise attack. The soldiers of Hector tried to follow them, but Chris and the others had already disappeared by then. Simultaneously, battles were happening in other areas. Enemy! Stop them! Whack! Kevin had taken over the leading position of Cairo here. Kevin cut off the head of the enemy who was screaming because of being terrified of his actions, and then quickly slaughtered the other enemies who still hadn't recovered from the shock. The aspect of the battle wasn't much different. As Roman intended, the Hector kingdom tried to form a siege, even if it was unreasonable, and in the process, the defense lines of the enemy were disrupted. Actually, Hector still had the advantage if one followed common sense. Although it was obvious that the side with higher numbers would win in a war of attrition, Cairo's surprise attack didn't fall within Hector's common sense. Die, shouted one of Hector's aura swordsmen. Their exploding aura was the hope of Hector. And the aura swordsman, who was about to cut off his head, was rather killed by Kevin first. Roman soldiers often called Kevin the rapidly growing monster. Obviously, they didn't mean that he was stronger than Chris, but Kevin was actually faster at slaughtering enemies. In this operation, many people asked Roman questions. They were worried that Roman was going to face Hector's army all alone and that the operations around the mountains were dangerous. However, unlike Chris, who confirmed with evidence in every case, Kevin never asked Roman a question. It was because he trusted Roman Dmitri completely. As it was Roman Dmitri, who had grown so much stronger since the time he had met Kevin in the slums, even though it was beyond common sense, Kevin believed it was possible. That was because of blind trust. Roman's existence was the very driving force of Kevin. Chris and Kevin brought about the same result. They both slaughtered a lot of enemy soldiers in a short amount of time. Nevertheless, there was something different about Kevin. Clench. Whack. He caught the enemy who was trying to flee by the hair. Then, while dragging him on the ground, he stabbed the enemy countless times in the stomach. Still, those attacks weren't even aimed at vital points. He was doing so that the other enemy soldiers would clearly hear the screams. He was inflicting pain on those he caught without mercy. And Hector's soldiers, who saw that, didn't even dare to approach Kevin. The Hector kingdom is our enemy. While standing by Roman's side, Kevin had always observed how he treated his enemies. In the fight with Barco, Roman had shown pure cruelty to them. And as Kevin had seen Roman do it, he also showed his enemies what fear was. I follow the values pursued by my liege. He didn't catch every single enemy that was escaping. After all, it took survivors to spread the fear to others. Kevin, who had deliberately left a few survivors, immediately sent a signal of retreat when he heard the sound of reinforcements rushing in. Chris, Kevin, Pookie, and Vulcan, they all had carried out the surprise attack simultaneously. Vulcan was the one who had first taken up the challenge when Roman was recruiting soldiers, and Pookie was someone who had succeeded in manifesting aura after training in Azure sword technique. They all had taken charge of one group each, and then, all four groups attacked at the same time. The operation was obviously successful. Just like Chris and Kevin unilaterally killed the enemies and ran away, they both also managed to do the same. And the news soon shocked the camp of Hector. Chapter 98. The Unexperienced World. Part 2. Kevin's intention worked. He had left one of the enemy soldiers alive on purpose. When that soldier finally reached Edwin Hector, his face was dyed with terror, and he trembled while revealing what he had experienced on the battlefield. See, Cairo's camp has magicians in it. They are suddenly appearing from the darkness, where no one should have been, and then started to attack us instantly. Please. Believe me. It wasn't a normal surprise attack like attacking after hiding in the bushes. Literally, as if it was all a mirage, they appeared from thin air. All of his body was trembling while he was speaking. A demon had brutally killed his comrades. And whenever he remembered the face of Kevin, he kept checking to see if he was behind him. "Commander. It seems like the enemy had set up a trap," remarked Jackson. Now, reports were coming that mentioned the enemy had attacked them from all sides. Even though they had the numerical advantage, they were unilaterally slaughtered, so there was a chance that what the soldier had said was true. Jackson. There is no magic that can completely hide someone in this world. There are some illusion-type magics that can show illusions, but the enemies carried out a surprise attack in at least 5 places simultaneously. The possibility of them using magic scrolls is quite low. The magic scrolls are strictly managed by the magic towers, so there is no way that the southern front can have them. Then, there is one more possibility, Cairo possessing an archmage. Still, how does that make any sense? Why would they put an archmage on the southern front rather than the western front? That's impossible. Right. That is impossible. That means what they used was not magic. Even a normal mage was several times more precious than an aura swordsman. Moreover, most of the mages were affiliated with the neutral organizations, the Magic Towers. Just like the Golden Bank, the Magic Towers were groups that worked for the benefit of the entire continent. It was well known that 9 out of 10 people, who were born with the talent of handling mana, hoped to be in one of the Magic Towers. The reason was simple. The Magic Towers were a literal treasure trove of knowledge, so if one wanted to grow as a mage, they had no choice but to go there. There were only a few mages in each country. That was why Edwin Hector couldn't understand why Cairo would put a great being like that on the southern front. There is something special about Roman Dmitri. He didn't oppose our attempt to capture the southern front instantly but lured us into the mountains with all preparations in place. Maybe this is a trick to buy time. The longer we will stay in the mountains, the more damage our troops will take. The southern front will also find a way to relax, and the moment the troops from Cairo's royal family arrive, the tide of this war will be turned around at once. Edwin looked at the entire chessboard and the quickly moving pieces. The battle here would be fatal, but Edwin Hector had no intention of retreating. The moment we retreat and lose our momentum, this war will be over. Instead of defeating the troops, if we focus on capturing the front defense line, will we be able to achieve the goal? No, it will be hard. Roman Dmitri would gain the reputation of defeating the Hector kingdom's troops with only a small force, and that will surely give Cairo a justification to not give in to Hector's demands. War is driven by force and morale. The moment a hero named Roman Dmitri is born in this war, Hector will be dyed with defeat. It is too early to go head-on. Even though many soldiers were dying, he had a goal, saving the Hector kingdom. Everyone had sworn to give their lives for that, and Edwin could not let their deaths be in vain. It's best to wait. Roman Dmitri will eventually fall into my trap. Just then. Roman Dmitri. He has appeared. He heard those words from the magic communicator. Roman Dmitri had finally begun to move. Swish. The darkness was gone. The moment the light from the magical artifact lit up the surroundings, the aura swordsman's face was colored in shock. Quack. Quack. Roman Dmitri was right in front of him. He appeared from the darkness and pushed the sword into his chest before he could even react. Eventually, he began to stagger. However, after he knelt down while blood was flowing out of his body, strangely, a smile spread across his face as he looked at Roman. Cough. We finally got you. Flash. There was an aura explosion. His intensely boiling mana created bright light through the artifact. He was already ready to die. Still, before he lost consciousness, he hoped to place a bell on the neck of Roman in exchange for his death. Flash. Roman Dmitri. Roman Dmitri has appeared. Form a siege. The situation turned around quickly. It was quite different from before. That was because they didn't have any way to catch him as he hid and attacked from the darkness previously, but now, bright light was shining from Roman while he was moving. When the aura swordsman created an aura explosion, many fragments of light crystal shone all around and shot at many things. Some of them even managed to enter Roman's body, and even though he wasn't feeling any physical pain, his body was now shining brightly. The Aura swordsman didn't die in vain. And the quickly changing situation, the captains also did their best and linked communications with each other. Roman Dmitri is moving toward the north. He just turned the other way. Second company. Second company. The rat is coming there. In an instant, a siege network was formed. Hector's soldiers systematically drove Roman back, and no matter how fast he was, he could not seem to get out of the siege. Until this moment, Edwin Hector was prepared for damage and had spread the soldiers far away. But the moment Roman Dmitri was found, Edwin made his men climb up quickly and pressured Roman from the vantage point. He was convinced this was the end. He had spread out an entire net to catch only Roman. And as time went on, the range of the net began to narrow, and finally, forces to face Roman began to emerge. In such a situation, the troops of the Hector kingdom thought that finally, Roman Dmitri had been cornered. Many allies were lost because of only one person, but it was now only a matter of time before they dealt with the ghost that was haunting them. Edwin had stepped on Roman's tail. Hector's soldiers attacked all at once as soon as they saw Roman running away and trying to scatter the fragments of light crystals. Die! I will avenge my comrades. The soldiers rushed toward Roman Dmitri while being filled with madness. Roman was a demon who had killed countless of their comrades. The soldiers' eyes were dyed with fury when they remembered the memory of trembling in fear while not being able to sleep. Hook! Sharp weapons attacked Roman from all sides, and at that moment, Roman's body darkened. Instead of running away, he suddenly changed his direction and swung the sword at the soldiers. Whack! Blood splattered. The soldier's body was exposed because of his fury, and he was taken down with one swing. Still, he didn't stop as he began to cut down all who had attacked him. He was moving so fast that it was hard to see him with the naked eye. Thousands of soldiers' blood had splashed everywhere. Apparently, they were filled with so much hatred toward Roman that they weren't careful enough, and were slaughtered by him. Still. Chase him. Do not miss him. The chase had just begun. All the enemies were trying to bite his tail. Even if several comrades were cut down, even more enemies appeared and chased after Roman. There was no room to escape. He was caught in a perfect net. As time dragged on, the masters of Hector also appeared. Huang! Auras shone all around. All Aura swordsmen raised their aura and ran towards him. Among them, there were even 3-star Aura swordsmen, and powerful aura that ripped through the air was an attack even Roman couldn't ignore. The soldiers of the Hector kingdom were convinced that their attacks had worked this time. The captains had told them that Roman was a 3-star Aura swordsman, and there was no way he could deal with so many Aura swordsmen at once. In the situation where flames made of aura were aiming for him from all directions, Roman instantly exploded his mana. Heavenly Demon Sword Art, second move. His sword flashed. Mana that rose up wildly collided with the aura that filled his vision. Quack-quacking. Quack. Yuk. The Aura swordsmen were swept away in the powerful explosion. Their swords, which were shining with aura until a moment ago, were cut off, and a trail of blood was left behind as their bodies had been torn apart. The scene that a single blow had created was stunning. Still, despite such a great attack, Roman left the scene without a single gasp. Still, everyone was in shock. They all had realized how formidable Roman was as an enemy. He was completely beyond their common sense, and they realized that even if they grabbed him by the tail, he would kill them. Nevertheless, they continued to follow him recklessly. If Roman was such a monster by himself, what would happen if they missed him and he regrouped with his unit? They didn't even want to imagine it. Even if they captured all the camps on the southern front, Roman Dmitri seemed like a demon who would somehow slaughter all the soldiers of the Hector kingdom despite that. Everyone succumbed to that feeling. The soldiers of Hector threw away their lives, and they were even prepared to have Roman's sword on their necks if that could stop the movement of Roman. Even though it was miserable, ironically, it was also a golden chance to kill Roman. This wasn't being done because of cold and rational thoughts but purely due to instinct. 10 minutes had passed. It was a short time normally. However, the blood of those who had died during that short time was enough to create a river, and with every move, they seemed to be trampling on bodies. Since when? People thought it was weird. It seemed Roman Dmitri, the demon, could be caught in a short time, but why wasn't he being caught? Then, was he even really running away? The ominous thought that flashed in their mind made their hearts sink down to the bottom. Quack! Quack! This time, as well, he dealt with the pursuing enemy. Roman just wiped off the blood that was dripping down the sword and calmed his breathing. My stamina is also reaching the limit. The heavenly demon sword art wasn't something Roman could use often with his current body. However, as Hector's aura swordsman continued to rush in from all directions, he had to use everything he could and exert his strength. Just then, a swordsman who was on the ground with a cut on his chest cursed at Roman. Do you think you can survive here? Huff, that will not happen. Thousands of troops are coming here. No matter how strong you are. Huff. In the end, the only way this will end is with you meeting a horrible death here. He was furious. He looked up at Roman with bloodshot eyes while screaming. At that moment. Smirk. Roman smirked. Humans are always like that. As it was with Thompson and the others, people fall into illusions in certain situations. Why did you think I fell into that trap like that? Even when I saw the aura swordsman coming forward with magical artifacts, why did I kill them and leave my body in the range of the shattering artifacts? What do you? The Hector kingdom couldn't imagine it. Roman Dmitri, the bait, had deliberately waved his tail to them and showed them what they wanted to get. The knight's face was stained in shock. Looking down at him, Roman told him the cruel reality. There are a lot of people running around to pursue me. You might think that the siege is perfect, but in the end, there are bound to be loopholes in what humans do. 1 minute, no, even for 30 seconds, the enemies who reach me first are quite stupid for trying to risk their lives to catch me. How silly is that? The fact that you all are less prudent than ever because you think you have cornered me. He knew how reckless this was, but the heavenly demon, Baek Jun-hyuk, had always lived like this. He thought backward and was a being who was disruptive. Then let's move to where I need to go. There is still a lot of time until sunrise. The enemies would soon understand that Roman Dmitri, the fact that common sense didn't work in the world of Baek Jun-hyuk. Chapter 99. The Unexperienced World. Part 3. The Hector kingdom was a step behind when they were chasing Roman. Naturally, when they arrived at the scene, they only saw the cold corpses of their allies and Roman standing alive there. The damage was quite serious. A feeling of fear crept into their minds. Nevertheless, that was only the case until the captain of the ranger unit, Jackson, arrived. This is as far as you go. He directly stepped on the tail. When he saw that Roman was still dealing with Hector's soldiers, he didn't delay his attacks and directly manifested an aura to deal with Roman. Rumble. The aura erupted like an explosion. And simultaneously, Roman understood that Jackson was a 4-star aura swordsman. Clang. Kong. The moment their swords collided, a massive aftershock was created on the battlefield. The aura that rose from Roman's sword wasn't pushed back when it collided with Jackson's aura, and Jackson's face was stained with shock when he saw that Roman had managed to block several of his attacks. It was natural. After all, Valhalla had said that Roman Dmitri was a 3-star aura swordsman. Nevertheless, as Roman had blocked his attacks, he was clearly far superior to a 3-star aura swordsman. Roman Dmitri is underrated. He felt goosebumps rise on his skin. Finally, he understood why the soldiers of Hector had been slaughtered like that in the past by Roman. The state of 4 of the defense lines was disastrous, and there was no way ordinary soldiers could do something like stop Roman, just like what was happening now. Help Captain Jackson. Attack. All of Hector's soldiers ran when they saw a gap. As Roman and Jackson were colliding with each other, they wanted to aim from behind and fatally wound Roman. They all aimed for Roman's blind spots precisely. In a fierce battle with Jackson, Roman shouldn't have been able to look back, but Roman somehow swung the sword behind him without even looking back and was able to defend himself from Jackson's attacks as well. Whack! With a single blow, all the soldiers were sent to the afterlife. Roman, who dealt with the danger as if it was nothing, slammed the ground and drove Jackson away instantly. This guy. Jackson was stunned. Roman had the leeway to deal with the soldiers while dealing with Jackson as well. Although it was disconcerting that Roman was more powerful than he thought, his instincts from experiencing the mountain warfare sent him a warning sign. Jackson was a 4-star or a swordsman. The public only knew that Jackson was the captain of the Ranger unit, but they didn't know exactly how strong Jackson was. That was why Jackson's name wasn't there in the rankings of the Hector Kingdom. He had opted for security over fame, and his attack forced Roman Dmitri to become shocked, at least, that was what he believed. Contrary to his expectations, Roman was just calm. Rather than the reaction he had expected, Roman didn't seem to care much about the fact that the opponent was a 4-star or a swordsman. Although Jackson was doing his best to push away his opponent, the feeling of insecurity didn't go away. Obviously, Roman Dmitri was caught in a trap, and there was no way Roman could get out of this alive. Yet, how the hell was he staying that calm? It doesn't matter what kind of goal you had. The moment you met me, there was no way left to escape. He suppressed his doubts. This fight was already over. Because of the 1 minute Jackson had earned. Beep. There. Besiege Roman Dmitri. Thousands of lights began to shine from behind Jackson. It was a perfect siege. Enemies rushed around quickly. Although he wasn't captured for even a few minutes, the siege of the Hector Kingdom made Roman hold his breath. Surrender, said Jackson wildly. If Roman resisted till the end, he was prepared to take damage and kill Roman. It was ideal for Roman to surrender, so he gave him time to choose. Surrender? That's funny. Roman laughed. Roman wasn't too surprised that he was a 4-star or a swordsman, as Jackson had expected. The fact that Hector must have had a powerful force on their side to attack the Cairo kingdom was predictable in the first place, and the opponent being Jackson wasn't a variable. Naturally, as soon as Jackson appeared, he began to deal with him without panicking. Jackson's skills certainly weren't as good as he had thought of them, but it was well within the range he had expected them to be in. On the other hand, Jackson was confident of his victory. The confidence on his face was based on his experience and conviction that Roman was now cornered. Roman smirked when he saw Jackson's confident face. Even if I surrender, the Hector Kingdom will make sure to kill me, as I am too big a danger to be left alive. Still, didn't you think something was strange while you were chasing me? Why did I go right into the trap the opponent had laid? Why did I draw your attention while running away in the mountains? There are 3 reasons. First of all, the fragments of light crystals attached to the body cannot bind me. Roman raised his mana. As the mana that originated from the Danteon circulated throughout his body, the fragments of light crystals attached to his body came off without much effort. It was so shocking that Jackson was truly perplexed. How were they able to catch Roman in the first place? It was because his ability to hide in the darkness was disabled, thanks to the light crystals. However, if that could be solved so simply, the current situation would make no sense. The ominousness in Jackson's body continued to grow. He feared what Roman would say next. Secondly, I have the confidence to get out of this siege under any circumstances. You all will see that soon. No matter how much you surround me, you will never be able to capture me. And finally, Roman spoke while gazing directly into Jackson's eyes. The last thing I wanted was for you guys to fall for my tricks and overlook something crucial. Jackson, you're the captain of the Ranger unit. The fact that you, such a powerful piece of the Hector Kingdom, are here means that the defenses of Edwin Hector have been neglected. At that moment, Jackson's eyes widened so much that it wouldn't be wrong to say they were about to fall out of the eye sockets. His heart also sank down to the bottom. As soon as the ominous imagination in his head appeared, Jackson hurriedly kicked the ground to block Roman's intention and ran directly toward him. Nevertheless, he was late. As soon as Roman had finished his words, he had kicked a tree and jumped into the air with movements that weren't possible for a human to do. It was the pinnacle of the footwork techniques of Murim. All those who had made this siege were left behind with their faces looking like idiots. As Jackson saw Roman kick the trees and disappear quickly, he shouted crazily, "Damn it! Go to the prince right now. The prince is in danger." The situation was reversed, and Roman had stunned Hector once again. Roman knew that there was a limit to the strategy of gnawing at enemies through a guerrilla operation. At first, it was a lot of fun because the enemies didn't anticipate his skills, but as talented people like Jackson appeared, he knew playing around anymore would be difficult. Roman was not the heavenly demon. If he was Baek Jung-hyuk, the one who had conquered the entire Murim, in the first place, the life of Roman Dmitri wouldn't have been in danger even if hundreds of Jacksons had appeared to fight him. That was why he needed a new plan that was in line with his current abilities and could ruin the operations of the Hector kingdom. There is only one way to end this war with a small number of troops. The commander, once Edwin Hector, who planned all this, is killed, the Hector kingdom will not be able to continue this war any longer. He then turned his gaze. Edwin Hector was everything to Hector. From then on, Roman intentionally communicated with Hector and instilled fear in his enemies while grasping the flow of mana through the device. The magic communicator is a device that allows people to send their voices to the other end through the connection of mana. If I can figure out the flow of it, I can find where Edwin Hector is speaking from. And if the contact is successful, there is no need to contact him again. If I remember the unique mana flow from the magic device used by Edwin, I can find him out where he is with my skills. He planned it from the start to the end. All of Roman's plans were thoroughly calculated. He had contacted the man on purpose to grasp the flow of mana and had deliberately thrown himself into the enemy's trap. Then, he dragged them far away so that once the enemies decided they had cornered him, the powerful people who were protecting Edwin would come forward to take him down. He just gently wagged the tail they wanted to catch. Even though he had the skill to escape from the start, Roman took the risk and dealt with them. The plan was truly reckless but worth trying. It was based on high risk and high return. And on the battlefield, making daring decisions that could change the tide of the battle was a powerful weapon that Baek Jung-hyuk possessed. Chuck. The scene around him passed away quickly. It was thanks to the light footwork technique. His body, which was constantly exerting mana, was moving like a beast through the forest to find its prey. He examined the flow of mana and felt that Edwin Hector was nearby. And as expected. Huh? Roman Dmitri. He found Edwin Hector. The escorts around him all looked bewildered and tried to block Roman, who had suddenly appeared, but they all got killed right away. Whack! The wall dividing Roman and Edwin was down. Now, it was time to deal with Edwin Hector. And just as Roman was about to cut off his head, he saw that Edwin Hector only had cold, subdued eyes while gazing directly at Roman. When he made the decision to pursue Roman, Edwin said, "Perhaps Roman Dmitri has already dug a trap ahead of us and is expecting us to pursue him. At first, we dealt with him on a whim, but that man isn't the kind to show up without a plan. Sacrifices are bound to happen in this plan, and even thousands of our men can die because of the trap Roman Dmitri has laid, but even so, we must pursue him. Only one thing, we need a clear result of slaughtering the enemies who have been resisting us till the end rather than being idiots who got hurt when they fought only 200 troops." His heart became cold the moment he set foot on the mountain. The war had already begun. No matter who the opponent was or what they had planned, Edwin wanted to win the war. Besides, the opponent was a monster called Roman Dmitri, which meant that man had to be taken down at all costs. He was sure that Roman Dmitri would come back as a greater danger to them if they left him alone. Roman Dmitri is like an unbridled foal. He obviously moves with a plan, but we cannot predict his actions. Then we need to focus on one fact, the opponent's purpose. If I were him, what would the most important thing be? Of course, there is the possibility of trying to prevent us from taking over the southern front over the span of 3 days. Nevertheless, if you think about it carefully, there is a simpler way to end this war once and for all rather than digging a trap and reducing the number of enemies slowly. No way. Jackson's eyes widened. He now seemed to understand what Edwin was saying. Right. That is to kill me, the commander of the Hector Kingdom. He may decide that coming here and killing me is easy while our troops will be pursuing him chaotically. It is truly a reckless plan one cannot choose unless they are crazy. Nevertheless, when I felt the hostility that man was showing me through the communication device, I understood that he was someone crazy enough to carry out that absurd plan. It was only a possibility. Thus, he wasn't sure if it would happen. Still, if it did, Edwin Hector decided to use it as an opportunity. The soldiers of the Hector Kingdom have laid down their lives for the kingdom. And I, too, will become the bait for the kingdom. If Jackson reveals that I am defenseless by pursuing him, that man will surely think of it as a chance to end this war as soon as he can. Edwin Hector was reckless as well. Even though he knew how dangerous it was, he was ready to do it to win this war as soon as he could. The moment Roman Dmitri appears in front of me, we will have a solid chance to deal with him. And now, as Edwin had expected, the man, Roman Dmitri, had appeared in front of him. It was truly an absurdly risky decision. Edwin Hector had used everything he could to prepare for this, and the escorts had run in faster than expected. SSSHNNGGG. Mana suddenly rose from Edwin Hector's body. Nevertheless, it was different from the way an aura swordsman used mana. Inferno. Weak. Rumble. An intense flame headed straight for Roman. Edwin Hector, the heir of the Hector family, a child born with the blessings of heaven, was a mage. Rumble. Bang. Chapter 100. The Unexperienced World. Part 4. The heat was so fierce that it seemed to cover the entire world. The flames from Edwin Hector's hands had spewed out in all directions as if they were from a dragon's breath. Crackle. FSSHHHH. The heat was strong enough to melt one's skin the moment it touched them. Roman turned away from that. Although he was running at quite a speed, he stopped instantly and aimed his attack on one side of Edwin Hector while avoiding the heat. How dare you? Edwin's eyes gleamed blue. Memorize. The magic circle he had engraved beforehand to prepare for Roman Dimitri's appearance instantly appeared. Entangle. Pack. Papak. The ground rose. The seeds of the plants buried in the soil germinated at an incredible speed and became trees with trunks as large as a human and grabbed Roman's body. It was like a giant anaconda had caught Roman. The tree trunks, which moved as if they were living creatures, possessed the powerful strength to even destroy a human body within a few seconds. One by one, the trees attacked Roman to take his life. Nonetheless, Roman raised his mana and cut down the trunks instantly, but just then, a powerful shock arose right next to Roman. Quang. Rumble. How dare you touch the prince? He had seen a man as strong as him for the first time in his life. He seemed to be middle-aged. Wearing a robe to hide his face, he pushed Roman away strongly while his mustache continued to flutter because of the wind. His sword continued to show an explosive aura that was threatening Roman's life with every attack. It was different from the aura Jackson used. This man's aura was so intense that it even distorted the surrounding atmosphere, and it was powerful enough that Roman hadn't experienced anything like it before in this world. That man was a 5-star aura swordsman named Butler, and he was the leader of the Royal Knights. He was also ranked second in Hector's rankings. Butler coming here meant that Hector really was doing everything they could to win the war against Cairo. You cannot run anymore. Quang. Quakwang. Butler's aura exploded as it pushed Roman, and the forest around them shook. It wouldn't have been strange to say that the strong and swift attacks were good enough to behead Roman soon. Also, Windblade. Swish! Edwin Hector didn't miss the opportunity. The wind that blew from his hand turned into a blade and attacked the gaps that arose because of Butler's relentless attacks. Their combo was truly an unstoppable attack. Even Edwin had thought Roman couldn't survive this. Swish! In an instant, Roman threw himself far away. After dodging the wind blade, he immediately raised his head back up and continued responding to Butler's attacks, who had already rushed toward him. Quang! His head trembled. Edwin Hector had dug a perfect trap. He had disguised his defense by showing him that the escorts had run to Roman recklessly, but actually, he already had Butler on standby. No matter how much Roman Dimitri crawls and flies, he will not be able to withstand the combined attacks of a 4-circle mage and a 5-star aura swordsman. This trap was beyond common sense. Just as Roman Dimitri had done before, Edwin Hector also attempted an attack that was beyond common sense. He believed that with this, he could finally take Roman's breath away. Roman's head was spinning frantically. He was continuously feeling a repulsive energy because of his opponent's non-stop combined attacks. Tui! He even spat out blood. Nonetheless, with Butler rushing toward him even at that instant, he couldn't lose his focus for even a single moment. As expected, they are fully prepared. Before he had made the attack, he had a gut feeling. Edwin Hector was a being who pretended to be someone ordinary even though he had raging mana within him. Thus, he knew Edwin Hector had dug a trap. Still, he followed his opponent's intention. Even though he knew that there was a trap, he appeared and attacked. Edwin. Why? Why did he make such a reckless choice? It was because he wanted to see it. In his life as Roman Dimitri, he had not yet seen anything that could be called a real crisis. Blood Fong, Barco, and even the guerrilla operation, in the life of Baek Jung-hyuk, all those things could be considered ridiculously easy. As his heart was drenched in comfort, Roman deliberately came out and put himself on the line of death to test himself. Quang! He blocked the attack. Still, a 5-star aura was so powerful that it shook his insides. Roman Dimitri's body had become stronger thanks to him experiencing the skeletal metamorphosis, but it wasn't yet at the level to take on a 5-star aura. Furthermore, Butler's sword technique was smooth and systematic. It showed how long he had trained in that sword technique, and he wasn't allowing Roman to take a break. Quang! Cocking! Sparks flew everywhere. As the auras collided, a strong shock swept through the surroundings. At that moment, Roman felt terrified. He could feel the mana rushing toward him once again. Naturally, he realized that the combo attacks hadn't ended yet. Swish! Wind blade! The blade made of wind flew past him. Blood splattered on his face, and Butler approached him while wielding his sword. The situation made him go out of breath. Roman's stamina was reaching the limit due to the successive attacks, yet he looked straight into Butler's eyes with an icy cold and threatening gaze. Heavenly Demon Sword Art, third move. The mana within his dantian trembled. Suddenly, a powerful explosion was created. Mana shone in all directions as if an active volcano was exploding, and the manifested aura attacked Butler terrifyingly. Quackwang! The power of the attack was literally incredible. Seeing the attack ripping through the air like butter, Butler hurriedly raised his sword and manifested an aura with all his might. Yet, he wasn't able to completely block the attack. Blood flowed out of his nose as he bounced off the ground. Nonetheless, that was all. Although it was quite a shock, he had not collapsed. Just where did this monster even pop up from? His voice trembled. Edwin, a 4-circle mage, and he, a 5-star aura swordsman, had attacked Roman relentlessly. Even if the opponent was a 5-star aura swordsman equal to Butler, they would have been dead by now, but the current situation was different from what he had imagined. Roman's violent counterattack had entirely shattered the plan they had drawn in their heads. Furthermore, Roman Dimitri is still in his mid-20s. He felt goosebumps rise on every single part of his body. He had reached the level of 5-star when he was in his 50s, but his opponent was already able to counter such a power. How was this even possible? Nonetheless, Butler felt fortunate. It was because he managed to meet Roman Dmitri now. It was like a golden chance to deal with the monster that belonged to the Cairo kingdom and would threaten them in the future. As of now, Roman was still not at a level to defeat him. Also, glance. He saw Edwin Hector. He noticed that Edwin, who had raised his mana violently, had a stiff expression. Now it really is over. Break. Hold. That was double casting. The mana instantly swept over Roman. Break was a magic that destroyed the target with a strong pressure. On the other hand, Hold was a magic that suppressed the target and made them unable to move. Both of the spells had clear purposes. The first one would break Roman's sword, and while the second one held him down, Butler would end his life with an attack while he was defenseless and couldn't move. Edwin also knew that Roman didn't have the magic immune artifact. Because of the momentary gaps that Roman had revealed, he would now die. Roman Dmitri doesn't seem to have the aura of any magic artifact. Therefore, there is no way he can stop this attack. He was certain. However, an unbelievable thing happened just then. Swish. Roman moved and avoided Butler's attack. Furthermore, even his sword looked fine. When Edwin saw there was no effective hold. Flinch. Roman instantly counterattacked. Naturally, blood splattered on the face of Butler. It was an unexpected counter, so he couldn't even react. None of them knew Roman's secret. The moment Edwin Hector used magic, Roman immediately understood what his opponent was thinking. He's trying to suppress me with magic power. He felt the force of Hold penetrate his body and suppress his muscles. Magic was a force he had experienced for the first time in his life as Roman, and he had also studied a lot about it. The intangible force, the realm of gods that allows one to create something out of nothing, that was what the book said. There was no magic in Murim. However, he knew about the realm of magic, which was similar but also different. In the last 6 months, Roman had sincerely prepared for war. He had started to research magic, thinking that he might meet mages on the battlefield, and was able to get desired results. Magic and witchcraft are different, but their fundamentals aren't so different. Like witchcraft, magic is based on mana and tries to infiltrate one's body and attack them with mana. Thus, as long as I use the heavenly demon godly art and remove it instantly, it should be enough. That wasn't as simple as it sounded. Mana penetrated the body with the intention of never being forced out of it, but Roman's mana management ability was at its peak. It was because he was Baek Jung-hyuk. Without any special effort, the mana stored in Roman's dantian moved and evaporated the power of Hold. Also, break wasn't a concern. That was because Roman's sword wasn't one that would be broken down by magic like that. He had gone through hell and repetitively subjected his body to flames to make this sword after he had given up Salamander. Edwin's spells of magic were broken. Obviously, Roman didn't prepare for the war while thinking that Edwin was going to be his opponent. Before the war, Roman had just prepared for all possible variables. The unexpected situation made Edwin and Butler utterly shocked. Obviously, Roman didn't miss that gap. Pack. He dug into the gap in an instant. This time, Butler couldn't even move. By the time he came back from the shock and tried to catch Roman, Roman's sword had already decapitated Edwin Hector. Swish. The attack was perfect. Edwin's head was now in the air. No, it should have been. Nonetheless, magical power didn't allow that. Blink. With the spell Blink, Edwin Hector's body disappeared from where it originally was. He reappeared a little further from where Roman was. Nevertheless, his face was ghastly pale as he had overused his magical prowess. Fucking bastard. Butler's emotions exploded when he saw that his prince had almost died. He manifested an aura that was incomparable to before and rushed ahead with the momentum to kill Roman at any cost. Also, Fleet. Whistles could be heard from every direction. The troops who were chasing Roman seemed to have finally arrived. With Jackson rushing toward him frantically, Roman judged he had to make a decision quickly. "If I stay here any longer, I will die." He saw Edwin Hector far away from him. Then, he said, "Remember this. I will catch you. If I meet you next time, you will not be able to survive like today." Once he finished his words, he kicked the ground and moved away instantly. Even Butler was left speechless when he tried to reach for the space that was filled with darkness, where Roman had disappeared, but couldn't even find Roman's traces. It was thanks to the Shadow King's martial arts. The other troops tried to quickly find Roman by lighting up the darkness with torches, but there was no way Roman would be found so easily. Eventually, everyone stopped in their spots. Seeing the darkness they could never dare to step in and the crazy situation in front of them, they only had one thought. This is Hector's defeat. That was an unacceptable reality, and even more so for Edwin Hector, who had lived his life being acknowledged by everyone he met. Naturally, he could hardly take his eyes off the darkness Roman had disappeared into a few moments ago.